Welcome inside the Cox Arena in downtown Oklahoma City for the 2018 Perfect 10 Challenge. Today, the number 12 Nebraska Cornhuskers take on the number 1 team in the nation, the Oklahoma Sooners. Hi everybody, I'm Mark Connor along with my fellow Sooner and fellow Olympian, Kelly Garrison Funderburg. It's great to be here in downtown Oklahoma City, which is technically an away meet for the OU Sooners, of course, who are based in Norman.
Well, it's a really great opportunity, thanks to you and Nadia, to have the Perfect 10 Challenge right here in Oklahoma City, and it gives the Sooners an opportunity to compete on the podium, Bart. And as you know, they'll be competing postseason, so every team in the country wants to have that opportunity to get on a podium earlier in the season, and so that's one of the best benefits of why the Sooners want to be right here in Oklahoma City tonight.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about what the podium does in terms of the dynamics and, of course, how it makes it a special event. We'll talk more about that in the show, but obviously all eyes on the number 1 Sooners. They have been just spectacular, and it's hard not to bring up right off the top Maggie Nichols. She has just been unreal, and she's just a super sophomore.
She is, and every time I watch her, I keep thinking, how can she get better? And then the next meet, I swear, she gets better and better. And she's like in a league of her own. She has that it factor. I was trying to think of it today. It's kind of like that Jordan, Michael Jordan. When he's in the air, he could do it. He had swagger.
Right.
Go, Maggie Nichols. Swaggy Maggie.
All right, well, her scores have been ridiculous this year, and we'll point that out in the show. The Sooners as a team have been over 198 3 times this year. That is a magic number in women's collegiate gymnastics. There's only been 5 scores over 198 this season, and the Sooners have 3 of them. The other 2 are Florida and UCLA, and of course Florida, UCLA, LSU, Utah, the top teams in the country will be contesting for the national championship come April in St. Louis. So today's Sooner to watch, of course, is Maggie Nichols, as we mentioned. She scored her 9th Perfect 10 last week in Lloyd Noble, and it was against the University of North Carolina, where she was spectacular on the beam once again.
It's almost like you don't want to guarantee the audience that, hey, you're going to see a 10 today, but it seems like it, doesn't it, Party? I mean, every meet, she seems to pull it out, and it could be on any event. I mean, you'd think, oh, tonight's going to be on bars, or maybe on ball. She can do any event. I'm just waiting to watch it happen.
She has scored the magic Gym Slam, which is a perfect 10 on all 4 events. Wonder if she could ever score a perfect 40. I imagine she could have that day.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's going to be a great day of gymnastics here from Oklahoma City. It's the 2018 Perfect 10 Challenge. We're glad you've joined us.
You're watching the Perfect 10 Challenge. Thanks to Healthcare Highways, the Chickasaw Nation, the Oklahoman, American Fidelity Assurance, the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau, Integris Health, HealthScope Benefits, and Web TPA.
And welcome back inside the Cox Arena in downtown Oklahoma City. Kelly Garrison Funderburg and Bart Connor calling the action tonight. Let's take a look at the keys to the meet for the Oklahoma Sooners, Kelly.
Well, the Sooners and the Cornhuskers both, they have the opportunity to be on the podium, but they have to find control on their landings. What a podium does is it gives them height, and so which is great. It gives them an extra bounce. But then when they land, they also have to absorb that, and so it's a different feel. That's why it's so critical. They get to practice on it this competition. And during this time of the season, it's confidence or it's concern for each team.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Oklahoma, Nicole Merriman. Competing on bars first for Nebraska.
All right, we are underway here at the Cox Arena. Kinsey Roby set for Nebraska on the uneven bars as the visiting team. They open up on Nebraska.
They had a wonderful warm-up. Oh, gosh. You know, I've seen that happen so many times. She actually was a little bit close to the bar, and her arms caught her wrist. I mean, the wrist kind of popped on top of the bar, and it just bounced her off.
So Nebraska is ranked 12th in the country, and they were hoping to have a solid performance here. This is one of the events where they had to be consistent. Head coach Dan Kendick said, we need a solid rotation on the uneven bars if we're going to stay close to the Oklahoma Sooners today. And unfortunately, a missed opportunity there for Kinsey Roby in the first performance of the meet for Nebraska.
You know, Bart, that also just shakes the confidence of the whole team. The first person up, the first gymnast up, it's critical that they hit. So we'll see how they can bounce back from that.
The first Sooner to go on the vault was Nicole Lehrman. Her score is in. It's a 9.775. Alex Marks, who's from Cushing, Oklahoma, second up for the OU Sooners.
This is Alex's second time to compete. Nice flare and stuck landing. She was part of that national championship team with her participation on vault.
Let's go down to the third member of our broadcast team, Meg McDonald.
Bart, thanks. Before we get ahead with the rest of this meet, Maggie Nichols is coming off back-to-back weeks where she scored a perfect 10 on beam. And although the same score, she actually did two separate routines. They were totally different. She added her front tuck in the meet just last week against UNC. And what that does is it added more difficulty. And I'm told it's a game-time decision by Coach Hindler. She said if the lineup is doing well, she'll throw it. Just because it's a little bit risky. But if they're not doing well, they want her score to go towards the team score. So we'll see what she does tonight, Bart.
Okay, thank you, Meg. All right, we are underway at the Cox Arena. Tori Hutchinson will be next up for the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the uneven bars. Nebraska, as we mentioned, 12th in the nation. They are undefeated. Now, they compete, of course, in the Big Ten, and they're 5-0 in the Big Ten, but they're averaging about 1.5 points less than the Sooners in terms of season averages. So 6 athletes compete. The best 5 scores count towards the team total. So hopefully they can hit 5 solid routines after that mistake in the lineup and get a respectable score on uneven bars in this first rotation.
This puts a lot of pressure on Tori because she is a freshman. This will show, you can hear me coaching a little bit over here. Please stand up, please stay on your feet. And she did. So that's good. She didn't count a fall, but as you know, Bart, stepping forward several times shows not quite completion of the skill.
Back to the Sooners. This is Brenna Dowell, who has been spectacular for the Sooners.
Brenna's already scored a 10 on vault this year.
Oh! Wow! She
great.
has an uncanny ability
It was great.
to
She's
drill
so
those
happy.
landings. You see the scores. Alex Marks before her had a 9.9, so a big smile from Brenna Dowell as she just drills that landing.
See it again right here. She hops her feet, just slides them back just a touch. So that's not technically a perfect stick, but it's darn close.
Happiness on this face of that young lady, but it is true that she slid just a little bit back and unlikely to see that mark of perfection today, but that's what everybody's looking for here at the Perfect 10 Challenge, is will they get to see a perfect 10? There is Dan Kendick giving a couple of last-minute notes. Kendick in his 25th year at Nebraska, in charge of that program there. Caitlin Orell, one of their best bar workers. Coming up now, she is a redshirt sophomore from Blue Springs, Missouri.
You know, yesterday watching practice, they were just still kind of getting used to the swing. They'd had a long day traveling here, and when I watched them warm up today, they were just perfect. So I'm hoping they can continue hitting the next 3 routines. You can tell they're a bit reserved just simply because of that first fall.
The first score was a 9.025 for Kinsey Roby. The second score, a 9.5 for Tori Hutchinson.
Lower than they want, but she stayed on her feet. And another hit routine. They're just finding themselves again after that first, surprise routine.
A.J. Jackson set to go for the Sooners. Look at the national rankings, of course. The Sooners are first, third, 19th, and 8th in the standings. Brennan Dowell had a 9.9, following up after Alex Marks' 9.9. Jackson, Webb, and Nichols will close it out in this rotation.
This lady's got so much power, she's just got to find that landing. That's a good example of when you land and kind of bounce out of it, because part of it's because of the podium, but sometimes I feel like AJ's got a podium all of her own. She's so springy.
We mentioned the podium. You see the gymnasts are competing here on a riser system, like a staging system. It's what they use at the World Championships, the Olympics, the National Championships. And it does add a different dynamic to the equipment. All the apparatus is a little springier, a little bouncier. The sight lines are different. It's quite an adjustment for many of these athletes.
It really
and that's really one of the main reasons they choose to come to this meet, to have this experience.
Right. I'm surprised more teams aren't in the lineup calling your number.
Caitlin Orell had a 9.7 in their third performance. This is Taylor Houchin.
What a gorgeous routine. She's ranked 19th in the country. You can see why. You can see the difference in her routine, the hitting the handstands, the beautiful body line all the way through to the toe point, and not perfectly stuck dismount. They needed that routine.
They certainly did. The high score so far for Nebraska is a 9.7. Every score for the Sooners is above that. As we go back to the vault.
This is Evie Schofer. Evie's just a freshman, and she is really turning on. Look at that height. She just needs a little confidence, but she really has it.
The scoring placard was expecting to see Maggie Nichols. That's the name we see on the scoreboard, but KJ Kindler was telling us before the meet she is planning on adjusting her lineup a little bit. So Evie Schofer got the 5th spot for the Sooners after A.J. Jackson's 9.8.
Well, and I think one of the reasons, although we weren't notified, I think one of the reasons is it gives that freshman experience up here on this podium. They need it going in. There's no chance. It's a long season. If someone got hurt and they need to put Evie in, then they need her to have the experience.
9.925 the score for Houchin. So Nebraska getting on track, and Abby Epperson up now.
Abby's been a real joy to watch. She transferred from Maryland after her sophomore year to Nebraska. Both of her parents, Mike and Lisa,
Right, I remember them as gymnasts.
competed at Nebraska.
Mike from the Bartlesville area.
Right?
Oh, nice. Wow.
Beautiful. She knows how to pull it out. Great routine.
So Abby Epperson, the senior from Allen, Texas, is where she grew up, had a rough all-around last week.
Yeah.
But a nice moment there for the Cornhuskers. And Maggie Nichols will wrap it up on vault for Oklahoma after Evie Schofer was 5th. Nichols, the final vaulter for the Sooners in this first rotation.
That was amazing. That takes just experience. She landed that just a shy short, and she just stayed down to show that she, well, we'll see it right here. So everyone watch this landing, and she just barely shuffles her feet backwards. But a lot of gymnasts would have sat that down or taken a step, and she was smart enough and experienced enough to not do that.
You see the score 9.8 for Evie Schofer. Maggie Nichols will get her score, and as is the tradition, exhibition performances will be performed here, and the Sooners will have an exhibition performance from Stephanie Couture on vault, but the Sienna Krause, who is one of the go-to gymnasts for Nebraska now, up on the bar.
Watch this here. Everyone watch this. beautiful Weiler to have to, gorgeous high ginger, right into an overshoot. A little loose in the form on the overshoot, but the rest was fantastic. They needed that too.
And Abby Epperson before her had a 9.85, so after 3 not spectacular routines for the Cornhuskers, they have gotten on track with some good scores. Expect a good one for Sienna Kraus. This is Stephanie Couture. Once again, she is competing or performing in an exhibition slot. She'll get a score, but this won't count towards the team total.
I cannot get over how much she has improved. Here she is a senior, and I'm just so amazed because in warm-ups, I saw the highest vault I've ever seen her do. You just don't normally see that going into your senior year, hardly even competed vault.
Couple of last-minute notes for Nebraska's Dan Kendick as he's talking to Danielle Breen.
Danielle is an academic All-American, just a real fun kid to watch. Each meet, she continues to get better. She started out a little slow this year, but she's continuing, and that's what it's progress. That's what they want.
How about
mid-season.
that score? Sienna Krause's score is in 9.925. So 3 excellent routines at the end of that lineup for the Cornhuskers in this rotation. Once again, this is an exhibition performance. For Danielle Breen, it is a chance to get some experience, but it will not count towards their team total.
She's had to fight through this routine. That last handstand was a touch shy, but again, like you said, good experience. That's a good example, too, on that landing. The bars have a tendency to bounce, so when you release going into your dismount, it kind of gives you a different fling. And so you'll notice if they can figure that out, it's okay, but some of them are pinging off and then having to take a step on their landing.
That completes the first of 4 rotations. The visiting Cornhuskers were moved to the vault, and the Oklahoma Sooners, the #1 team in the nation, will move to the uneven bars. We'll talk more about the perfect 10s when we come back.
Welcome back to the Cox Convention Center and the Perfect 10 Challenge, which is all part of the Bart and Nadia experience. That, of course, is Nadia Comaneci, who really was a catalyst for the sport of gymnastics. Former Romanian gymnast and 5-time Olympic gold medalist who scored the first 10 in the Olympics. Not only that, Kelly Garrison Funderburg on the call for the meet right now. She was actually the first Sooner who scored a perfect 10, who really was a catalyst for this Oklahoma team, with 3 Sooners now who have scored perfect 10s with Anastasia Webb, of course Maggie Nichols, and Brenna Dow. A really, really exciting meet today.
Yeah, how about that? Look at that. That was a couple years ago,
Just
Kelly.
a few years back.
My 10s came in the '84 Olympics, and I'm thrilled it was only 34 years ago. You, of course, scored the first perfect 10 on beam in NCAA history a few years ago.
Right.
But it all started with Nadia Comaneci, my lovely bride, who not only scored the first perfect 10 in Olympic history in Montreal in 1976, but she went on to score 7 perfect 10s in that Olympic. And that has been a defining moment for the sport of gymnastics, and one that we're still celebrating all these years later.
That's
Kelly.
right. She just blew it away. Look what she started.
One of the things that makes collegiate gymnastics so thrilling is that they have retained the perfect 10 as the benchmark. International gymnastics has what they call an open-ended system, so a winning score might be a 14.725. It's kind of hard for uninitiated fans to really get what's going on.
I know.
It's complex, so a lot of the fans they prefer the 10 because that's a metric and a measurement that people can relate to.
Exactly. I think they should keep it. Honestly, I wish they would go back to it on the international level.
I think one of the reasons collegiate gymnastics is so popular these days is, of course, they have retained the perfect 10. And so there's a whole lot of people here tonight that are on the edge of their seats hoping that they might get to see one, or at least they'll know how close an athlete gets to perfection. There is KJ Kindler in her 12th year with the Sooners. You see her record. She, of course, has led them to 3 national championships in the last 4 years. So she has become the gold standard in collegiate gymnastics, and she's done it in a relatively short period of time. Former gymnast and coach at Iowa State, came here 12 years ago with her husband Lou Ball, who is her assistant, and Tom Haley, who has added so much to the program. And so the Sooners move to the second rotation, which is the uneven bars. You see Tom Haley giving them some last-minute instructions, and the Cornhuskers will be on the ball. Talk about how good the Sooners are on the bars. Here are their national rankings. They are listed in that way. That's based on who the lineup, the order of lineup tonight, but they have the #1 gymnast in the nation there. Nebraska's vault is set to go. First up is Curtis.
Michaela Curtis. Oh, that's exactly what they want. Solid Yurchenko layout full.
She's a freshman from Savannah, Georgia. One of the top gymnasts for Nebraska is not in the competition today. That is Megan Schweihofer. They said she needed some rest at this point in the season after 5 victories. They are undefeated coming into this meet. All their competition has been against Big Ten foes. So Schweihofer out, which gave the door opening to Miss Curtis, Michaela Curtis, and she did a nice job to start them off. A.J. Jackson will lead off the Sooners on bars, as she has done all season long.
She's been a great leader this year in this spot, leadoff spot. Oh, it was right on, perfect catch. Overshoot to hand.
After the first of 4 rotations, the Sooners have a lead of .375 over the Cornhuskers.
Really looking for those landings. As you've mentioned before, Bart, at the national championships last year, that's one of the things that just set the Oklahoma Sooners apart to win that national championship, was sticking all those landings on the uneven bar rotation.
Now, of all the events, uneven bars is one of those where the dynamics are quite different up on the podium. Everything's a little bit springier. We go back to the vault now for Nebraska.
Oh, look at that. A nice tuck landing for Megan.
Megan Vercelis-Carr, second up after Miss Curtis, led them off.
She's a freshman, and last meet was her first vault, so this is great experience. Last meet on the floor, this meet on the podium. She'll be ready to go for the rest of the season.
And they're hoping that by the end of the season, she can get that 1.5 twister, which is a 10.0 start value. And of course, all the gymnasts hoping to have routines that start from a 10.0. The vault you see typically, the Yurchenko full, is with a 9.95. So the judges do reward athletes who take a little bit extra risk, and so most of the top teams are shooting for 4, 5, or 6 10.0 vaults. Anastasia Webb now, the freshman from Morton Grove, Illinois, up for the Sooners.
She's really been outstanding so far this year. Wow, look at that. Just impressed with her poise. Every event, she just seems to really rock it. Such a difficult dismount. Do a double front, it's a blind landing, so you can't see the floor before you land on it. So sticking it is really just a matter of feel and timing in the air.
She is remarkably consistent there. Now, Grace Willens, one of the best vaulters on the team for Nebraska. A little close to the vault table, but boy, did she control the landing.
Look at all the team, they're so excited. She is a senior, and she provides so much leadership for the Cornhuskers. But like you said, Bart, I do think she needs a little more of that Mary Lou Retton run to get some distance away from the table. But it was a great landing.
The scores so far for Nebraska: Curtis had a 9.75, Megan Vercelis-Carr a 9.825. Back to Oklahoma on the bars. Stephanie Couture will be set to go.
Stephanie really came on a couple of years ago for the Sooners on the uneven bars, and just was this clean, perfect routine, easy. And I'm finally starting to see her go for those handstands, going more all out, not having a conservative approach. We'll see if she does it here.
Anastasia Webb had an impressive 9.925.
Wow.
Beautiful height.
There's that handstand. I'm just amazed. You know, you forget how the bars do provide that extra bounce. So the release moves are so high. Look at this.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice, not perfect, but another hit routine.
The senior from Phoenix, Arizona, Stephanie Couture.
Competing next for Nebraska on the vault, Monica Stojakovic.
Annika Dujakovic, Grace Williams.
Annika is a freshman, so they have 3 freshmen in the vault lineup.
Williams had a 9.85.
Wow, they sure are competing a lot better than they've warmed up, and I'm glad that's when you want to hit. You don't want to win warm-ups. They are piking down just a touch, so there will be a deduction for that, but my goodness, they are sticking those landings.
Brenna Dowell getting set to go for the Sooners on bars. Now, this is the same lineup that they used last week against North Carolina. Sometimes the coaching staff likes to mix it up to give people more experience. This is a team that, as KJ Kindler says, is 8 deep on bars, meaning they have really 8 outstanding routines, and they can basically pick any 6 gymnasts to go in the lineup each week. So she's pretty confident with their depth on bars. Dowell, the junior from Odessa, Missouri.
First to Kochev was right on. So the handstand. Like how she's waiting to get the shoulders across to hit the handstands. It's hard to tell from where we're sitting because Lou is sitting, Lou Ball, the coach for the Oklahoma Sooners, assistant coach. It's hard to see them landings and see whether or not they're sticking.
Abby Epperson up now. Annika Dujakovic had a 9.85.
I love having to watch a gamer. You know, sometimes you watch them in practice and you think, how are they, you know, I'm not sure that they're going to make that. And beautiful. I love that about Nebraska Cornhuskers. They are gamers. They're bringing it to competition. A little bounce. That's that bounce we keep talking about. Stay down on your knees. Absorb the shock and the bounce.
It's part of the dynamics of the podium. It makes everything just a bit springier. And when they get to the national championships, they will compete on a podium like this. And so this is the experience they're hoping to gain here, is how do you control those landings and stick landings when national titles are on the line. Brenna Dowell's score is in a 9.875. Nicole Lehrman and Maggie Nichols will round it out for the Sooners. Both of these ladies have a piece of the 6-way tie last year that won the national championship on the uneven bars. This routine is just outstanding in terms of technical perfection.
You're exactly right, Bart. Love to watch her body line. And even though it's no deduction to have the coach stand by the low bar when they do that belted handstand on the low bar, it's nice to see it when the coach is not, because it just shows so much more confidence of the athlete.
Lehrman, the junior from Austin, Texas, did her club training at Capital Gymnastics.
This is textbook perfect when you watch Nicole Lehrman. Just textbook. Oh, little step.
Sienna Kraus now for Nebraska on vault. Oh, nice 1.5 twister.
Been waiting to see that from her. She's the only one on their team that does a vault that starts from a 10.0.
She's coming after the 9.775 for Abby Epperson. So 1.10.0 vault for Nebraska, and Dan Kendick liked the results of Sienna Kraus, who is typically very solid on all 4 events. So far, the Sooners have 2 9.875s on bars and 2 9.925s. 3 9.925s. The score in for Nicole Lehrman, the same. so. Maggie Nichols will be the 6th and final counting score for the Sooners on bars. And she has, of course, tasted perfection on all 4 events.
It's a unique Tkachev, high position. Oh,
an unusual form break.
Very uncharacteristic, but she's lucky she stayed on, to be quite frank. So definitely wasn't her best routine. If we have to give her a pass on bars today, we will. I know she's going to be unhappy. She's such a competitive person.
As she is, and she has been nursing something of a sore knee. In the off-season, she had what they call microfracture surgery to help heal the knee joint. But yeah, you're right. She was lucky that she managed to hang on to the bar considering the technique there.
Well, and it's so hard when you kind of are having to struggle back up to finish the routine with the same flair that you normally have. You can see right there the disappointment on her face because she wants to win just every single meet. And I think, Bart, you mentioned about how Coach Kendler wanted to rest her.
Yeah, and she's not thrilled to be rested at any time. She wants to go full out every meet. But there's a little concern over there on Coach Kindler's face as well, as that, they're a heavy favorite to defeat Nebraska in this competition today. And she's probably trying to decide whether, she should give the full green light to Maggie Nichols or not, because Maggie didn't look quite her normal self.
That's right.
Now this on bars is Alex Marks. She's doing an exhibition after Maggie Nichols' score came in 9.825. Marks from Cushing, Oklahoma, did her club training at both Dynamo Gymnastics and Bart Connor Gymnastics. And a nice job there for the young lady from Oklahoma.
She's so long and lean to see that. She's 5'7", and when you see her on the bar, she's just so pretty to watch. You can tell she's so happy with that routine, giving her confidence going into the rest of the season.
Outstanding job for the Sooners in the second of 4 rotations. They move to the balance beam, where they are just the best of the best, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers will move to the floor. Don't go away. Be back here in Oklahoma City. And welcome back to the Cox Arena here in downtown Oklahoma City. A nice crowd on hand. This is the 2018 Perfect 10 Challenge. The number 12 Nebraska Cornhuskers against the number 1 Oklahoma Sooners on Bart Connor, along with Kelly Garrison Funderburk. And of course, this event is all part of the larger weekend of events called the Bart and Nadia Sports Experience. I'm glad you're here, Kelly, because we're trying to encourage Oklahomans to take ownership of their health and wellness, and they have 2,000 gymnasts competing throughout the weekend, and a sports carnival of sorts where youngsters around the Oklahoma City area will have a chance maybe to try gymnastics or volleyball, sitting volleyball, slacklining, judo, cricket, tennis. Of course, we have sport partners such as the Oklahoma City Thunder and the OKC Energy soccer team, USA Softball. There's a lot going on, and we encourage everybody in the Oklahoma City area to come on down to the Cox Convention tomorrow from 9 to 3. It's free, family, fitness, and fun. Hey, Kelly, maybe you bring your kids down and have a little fun.
Well, I've thought about that. So is there a limit on age?
No. You come on down and just have fun, and it's free. And thanks to all of our sponsors who are able to do this free for the community, but it's a way of getting kids excited about sports and fitness and wellness in general. Today there was an event with 300 kids from the 4th grade, all from Oklahoma City Public Schools area. There was a Special Olympics unified basketball game. And in the middle of all this, there's also 2,000 youth gymnasts competing all weekend long. And so it's quite an undertaking, one that we're quite proud of, but it's an event that is designed to not only highlight these amazing gymnasts, but also encourage Oklahomans to take ownership of their health and wellness and play sports and make good choices around nutrition and wellness in general. I know that's a big, important thing for you as well.
It is, and kudos to you to create this event and to be a leader, to say to the rest of Oklahoma and the country that this is important. We need to tackle the epidemic of obesity and just poor health decisions and choices. And so I love the idea of letting the kids try it out. The parents should, because it's basically a free lesson to try out a sport.
Yeah, and maybe they'll find that they'd like to try tennis or rowing or kayaking or who knows whatever, judo.
Right.
All right, so let's go down to the third member of our broadcast team, Megan McDonald. She's got a report.
Bart, thanks. I just caught up with assistant coach for Oklahoma, Tom Haley. Really happy with how the Sooners actually rebounded on bars after maybe not their best vault rotation, and that starts with A.J. Jackson, who's the leadoff. She is key to that lineup. As for Maggie Nichols, it looked like her foot almost just was too heavy on the low bar on her Chappah shaft, but she ended up recovering, and the Sooners really happy with that bar lineup, hoping to take that momentum into this beam rotation.
Okay, thank you, Meg. All right. There are 4 rotations in women's collegiate gymnastics, and we are set to go into third rotation. The Oklahoma Sooners go to the beam as they are setting their sights on another beam record score. It is amazing how since 2010 the Oklahoma Sooners have either been first or second consistently on balance beam towards the end of the season. And there is, as you see there, let's go back to 2010. Oklahoma is traditionally first, tied for first, or at the lowest, second in the country by the end of the year in terms of average scores on the beam. And we, of course, we keep grilling Coach KJ Kindler on what is the magic sauce, and she said, I'm not saying.
Well, we'll get to see a taste of it right here.
So now we talk about the podium. This is really interesting on the balance beam because it's up on a 3-foot riser system. It makes everything just a little bit more mobile, and so this is one of the main reasons the gymnasts like this Perfect 10 challenge, because they're on the podium and they have a chance to experience this prior to the national championship, which will be contested on the podium third week in April in St. Louis.
Well, and that's a good reason why they're trying it out. That's very uncharacteristic of Stephanie, and it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the team. Here we were talking about them being the beam queens.
Stephanie Couture, the senior from Phoenix, Arizona, typically quite solid on this event. And the Sooners last week against North Carolina, incredible 49.6, capped off with a perfect 10 from Maggie Nichols on beam.
You know, sometimes you're so surprised when you're on the ground that it's really hard to recapture your confidence.
Sooners have a lead of just a little more than 0.6 of a point. And a counted fall score in collegiate gymnastics was a half-a-point deduction. So the Sooners need to be consistent with the rest of the performances if they hope to stay ahead of the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Well, perhaps we'll get to see right here what went wrong. It looked like she was just even off on the first back handspring. Her foot didn't get enough push off in order to give her the height and the momentum going backwards to stay on.
Abby Epperson now leading it off for Nebraska on floor. When you look at the record, the series history between these two teams, 61 times. Nebraska has won only 32 times. The Sooners have won, but the last 5 meetings, the Sooners have finished ahead of the Cornhuskers.
This music, the Pink Panther, is really untraditional for a college gymnast. And I asked their main choreographer, Russell Warfield, why exactly did she use this? And he said she's always wanted to use this music when she was in club, and they wouldn't let her. So,
Oh, good
amazing.
save.
You know, again, we can't stress enough how the impact this podium makes. If you just take off at the wrong angle, it's going to throw you that much farther, the wrong direction. However, if you're going the right angle, you're good.
Epperson has done a nice job today. 9.775 on vault. Not her best, but a 9.85 on bars.
Here she leads right into the last tumbling pass. Rudy.
You see in the background there with the red shirt and the black tie, that is Chris Brooks, the former OU All-America standout and Olympian on the 2016 Olympic team for the United States. He is now transitioned into coaching, and he is a first-year assistant coach at Nebraska. Good for him. Wow, what a save here.
Absolutely. She landed, and you could see her knees were bent or buckled, and so she was able to pull that out.
Competing next for Oklahoma on the beam, Bree Showers.
Bree Showers will go now for Oklahoma after the fall from Stephanie Couture.
Well, I hope their confidence does not get too shaken up.
9.225 was the score for Couture. So they'll need 5 hit routines to maintain that lead, which is .675 over Nebraska coming into this rotation.
Well, and Bree, you know, is a redshirt sophomore. So really, it's as if she's competing, you know, as a freshman. This is her first time on the podium as a Sooner. It has crossed my mind, however, that Coach Kindler might consider putting her first up. She has been so solid.
Nice combination.
You can tell, however, it was just a touch off, and when you're doing that back handspring swing down, you definitely want to be straight down the balance beam. This is really good for the Sooners to have to work through and push through a difficult situation. You know, sometimes it's been so easy. They need to be beaten. They need to have a rough competition. When Florida, they competed at Florida and Florida won, which they fully deserved to. I was actually happy because I thought, well, good, this will make them work for it. A national championship does not come easy for either team.
Showers, the sophomore from Rockford, Michigan. And she gets congratulations from Coach Kindler as Nebraska goes to the floor.
This is Kinsey Roby, and it's so unusual to watch her have classical floor music at a college competition. But Russell said, okay, I'll start classical as long as you'll put in a little techno or...
Russell Warfield on the sidelines there is a volunteer assistant coach in charge of choreography. Spent nearly 20 years working with the University of Georgia and their legendary program down there. This is Kinsey Roby after the 9.525 from Epperson.
Something you can watch for in each of the Cornhusker routines is a crossbones. And I asked him exactly what that represented, and he said, well, Florida has the chomp, and the Sooners have the 3. They're going for 3 in a row. And he was trying to explain it to me. It has something to do with the football defensive team. And they wear black, and they have the skulls and the crossbones. So that's where that came from if you come across it. Now this is a nice routine, starting with a beautiful double pike, ending with a double tuck. This helps to explain why the Cornhuskers finished 7th last year at the NCAA championships.
They typically peak, and they have been spectacular on beam, which is one of their best events again this year as well. So there is Russell Warfield giving her some notes. Okay, we go back to the beam for the Sooners. Bree Showers had a 9.8, so Nicole Lehrman to go.
Nicole is also a person who could be one of the gymnasts to start off the Sooners. You can already tell they're all just a little bit hesitant. They need to be exactly the opposite, but super aggressive in this situation.
Talk about the Sooners who had graduated 6 impressive seniors. And you remember last year's team, of course, Chase Capps, Charity Jones. Natalie Brown has been out, but we may see her in the lineup today. She had an injury, and she may get a shot to go for the Sooners today. But a lot of new people in the lineup for the Sooners this year compared to last year.
Well, when looking at the lineup, I was super excited because I thought this could very well be the national team lineup during nationals. Each of them have been amazing. You'll see coming up Anastasia Webb with a 10.0 in this year. Maggie Nichols with a 10.0. Natalie Brown was a previous All-American. And
oh my goodness.
Well, you can see, yeah. Well, I'm almost blank, and I think she is too. I think the whole audience is. Therefore, they will have to count a fall.
Collegiate gymnastic competition, 6 athletes compete on each event. The best 5 scores count towards the team total. The Sooners have 2 falls, which is a complete rarity, which means at least 1 fall will have to be counted towards the team total. So the Sooners, nursing a lead of .675, have squandered a lot of it right here on the beam in this rotation.
You can see her foot landed and just slipped right off to the left. I think it surprised her as much as anyone. Well, now they have something to work for. Who would have thought going into this competition? Too bad.
Mistake there for Carly Hutchinson after Kinsey Roby scores in as a 9-8.
Not many people do that first tumbling pass, a double front. Carly has, you've seen already, her twin sister, Tori Hutchinson. And they're so identical, it's really hard to tell them apart, but thank goodness one today has a bun and the other one has their hair down.
2 young ladies from Pearland, Texas. So a chance for the Cornhuskers to get back in this if they can be solid on this event, but a missed opportunity there for Miss Hutchinson.
Well, and here's something to consider is that Natalie Brown will be competing on balance for the first time this year after we finish watching Carly Hutchinson.
As we mentioned earlier, Nebraska undefeated, 5-0. All their meets have been in the Big Ten. Currently ranked 12th in the nation. Their average is about 1.5 points less than the Sooners.
Well, this certainly makes it interesting, doesn't it, Bart?
And floor is one of their highest scoring events in terms of team average. So it puts a little extra pressure on the Sooners now. They have 2 falls, meaning 1 will count towards a team total. And here is Natalie Brown, who has not yet competed this season. The senior from Dallas, Texas, did her club training at the World Olympic Gymnastics Academy.
Well, you'll be able to see that training when you watch her do gymnastics because it's fluid, it's long, it's beautiful, classic.
This fall, in fact, December 22nd, she had a surgery to remove a piece of floating cartilage in her knee. They were expecting her back perhaps by next week, so good opportunity that she's ahead of her progress in terms of coming back to compete for the Sooners. Nicole Ehrman scores in a 9.275.
This is how champions are made, to determine how they deal with adversity.
Just a middle hiccup on that potential connection. Let's see, she's going to re-rack it and go for it here.
Impressive.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, this is so crazy. And you know what? I think things happen for a reason. This totally opens the door for the Cornhuskers. They could go home with a win against the #1 team in the country.
the third fall out of 4 routines for the Sooners. We've never seen that for Oklahoma. And as we noted, they are stellar on the beam and have been for the last 8 years. Something completely unexpected tonight for sure.
And you know, Bart, they warmed up just fine yesterday and today. It's not like they were struggling to stay on. They were confident. You can tell that Coach Kindler knows, okay, this is a learning opportunity. You know, they say that about parenting, but it's also about, in coaching, it's a learning opportunity right here. You know, it's amazing she kind of repeated that skill in order to get her combination bonus. So kudos for her to get up and repeat it, but then unfortunately she fell.
Sierra Hassel now. Score for Hutchinson was a 9-1-2-5. So a real opportunity if the Cornhuskers can hit 3 solid routines right here, considering the Sooners have been uncharacteristically shaky on beam. Hassel does typically beam and floor for the Cornhuskers. She was out most of last season and then rocked 4 solid beam routines to make her presence known for Nebraska towards the end of their season last year. And as you mentioned, they finished 7th in the nation.
I think they see the opportunity right here. However, we have to keep in mind that they will have to go to balanced beam in the next rotation. So finishing on balanced beam always proves to be a challenge for any team.
Quick update on the scores. So Kinsey Roby had a 9-8, Epperson a 9-5-2-5, Carly Hutchinson a 9-1-2-5. The best 3 floor performers in Hassel, Williams, and Kraus in this rotation coming up. Hassel doing a nice job here.
I think they know, they realize what is available to them. They can just reach out and grab it.
Sierra Hassel, the sophomore from Johnston, Iowa.
Competing next on Oklahoma on the beam, Anastasia Webb.
Well, the Sooners have found themselves in a really unlikely situation here. And Anastasia Webb, the standout freshman, 4 times Big 12 newcomer of the week, including this week, is the 5th of 6 performers, and the Sooners have already notched 3 falls.
Anastasia's been fantastic this year on balanced beam. She's already scored a perfect 10 once.
9-1-5 was the score for Natalie Brown.
That was perfect layout, perfect landing. Another little hiccup, just a touch, but it might affect the start value of her routine. You know, in a situation like this, Bart, I think if I was going up, I would think, you know what, I might as well just go all out. I mean, what do you got to lose at this point?
Well, the psychology is very interesting because they're also thinking about, all right, what are we learning here?
Right. Okay.
Okay,
Step
so
routine.
the freshman from Morton Grove, Illinois, went to Niles West High School, same high school I went to a couple of years ago. Does a nice job. This young lady is really having a outstanding freshman year, Kelly.
She really is. I can't say enough about her. Really proud to see her come in and just continue to rock it. Doesn't matter the situation.
A couple of weeks ago, she slipped off bars in training and chipped a tooth. And as I continue to say, these are pound for pound some of the toughest and strongest athletes in the world as we go back to floor exercise. And this is Grace Williams for the Cornhuskers. The score for Sierra Hassel, a 9.85.
Grace is one of their best performers on the floor exercise. Actually, in several of the events. She will also be on balance beam, so she will be a key on whether or not they can win this competition.
And she is known as one of the real team leaders. Williams, the senior from Linden, Michigan.
You know, they're making all of their tumbling passes. I'd like to maybe see a little bit straighter body line in the twisting, but right now I think they're just looking at that possible W. Just a little shy in the full split. It's nice to have senior leadership going into the last couple of routines in each rotation. Look at that, ending double tuck. Watch this ending. Cool.
Grace Williams.
Really nice.
A solid performance for the Cornhuskers here in the third of 4 rotations. Remember, the Sooners had a lead of .675 going into this rotation. There are 3 falls for the Sooners. Anastasia Webb completed her performance. That is a 9.85, and Maggie Nichols, who last week scored a perfect 10, the 9th one of her career on beam at Lloyd Noble Center against North Carolina, will wrap it up for the Sooners, but this is an uncharacteristic situation. I'm not sure the Sooners have felt this type of pressure in a long time.
I agree. You know, all eyes on the country are also on the Sooners, and so I don't honestly think that they felt any additional pressure. I just think that they just are having an off day. So far, so good for Maggie Nichols.
Maggie was second in the world in the all-around in 2015, and yet mysteriously left off the 2016 Olympic team, did not even earn an alternate spot, or she had an knee injury that sort of inhibited her progress. And so she has all the capabilities of every one of those young ladies who came home from Rio with an Olympic gold medal. And yet Nichols now excelling in collegiate gymnastics and setting an amazing standard. Look at that.
That's right. That's what a champion does right there.
Sophomore from Little Canada, Minnesota. Twin City Twisters was where she did her club training.
As she dismounts, she realizes this is no problem for me. It will not get me rattled. She's been in much bigger competitions with much more pressure.
So after a uncharacteristic shaky bar routine, a nice job there for Nichols. And we go back to the floor for Nebraska. Sienna Kraus set to go.
Sienna's really the star of their team. Look at that.
Grace Williams had a 9.875, and it's worth noting that one of the star performers, Megan Schweihofer, is out there resting her this week. And yet the Cornhuskers find themselves in a situation where this meet wasn't close, and now the Cornhuskers have a slight lead over Oklahoma.
Amazing.
After 3 rotations.
Really, truly amazing. There's that crossbar mentioned earlier. If you watch every routine, they have it in there.
Now the score in for Maggie Nichols replaced one of the scores for the Oklahoma Sooners after the 3 falls. So the Sooners will count 2 low scores, which is unusual for them, but Nichols' score strong enough to move them back into a 146.95.
Competing on exhibition on the beam for Oklahoma,
Nichols had a 9.95 in a clutch performance for Sooners in that 6th and final spot. But one more score will come in for Nebraska on the floor, and they're also hoping to replace a low score, so this baby is going to be close.
The exhibition routine that we're watching here.
Carly Woodard has really been in the lineup on several occasions, and she is every bit capable of a 9.9 plus. We've seen it already.
Well, and you know, I think that's one reason you saw the face of Natalie Brown when she dismounted off the balance beam, because she knows she wants to be back in that lineup, and Carly is the one that was off of the lineup today because Natalie was put in. So
Carly had a 9.95 in that thrilling meet where the Sooners went down to Gainesville, Florida, and lost to the Florida Gators, their only loss of the season in a thriller.
Well, there's several top teams in the country, across the country, that could win that national championship this year. We talk a lot about the Sooners, but Florida is just as amazing. LSU, UCLA, Utah, could be really anyone's ball game.
Competing on the floor exhibition for Nebraska, Tori Hutchinson.
You see the score in the upper left there, Nebraska with a 147.05 as we get ready to watch their exhibition performance. Nebraska has a lead of a 10th over the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, Nebraska has yet to go to the beam, and the Sooners go to the floor in the 4th and final rotation.
Well, and I think what's interesting is that the Cornhuskers are ranked 10th in the country on balance beam, and OU is ranked 4th going on the floor exercise. So it will all come down to this last rotation. Based on numbers alone, the Sooners could pull it out. However, as we've noticed so far, they aren't exactly on their best game today.
Tori Hutchinson doing an exhibition performance, so once again, it won't count towards the team total. But you see the team scores on the left of your screen there. Sienna Krause's 9.875 was enough to secure the first lead of the night for the Cornhuskers. Sooners started with a .375 lead after one rotation, .675 lead after the second rotation, but squandered all of that and more in the third rotation, and now trail by a 10th behind Nebraska.
Well, and that's what's so exciting about college competition, too, is you never know what could happen. And, you know, as you mentioned earlier, this is without Megan Schweifer. She had, again, just her participation in the lineup had an impact difference of 1.9 for the Cornhusker team. And so she is, not being here today really makes a huge difference, but they could win it without her.
The Sooners under unusual pressure tonight, so they move to the 4th and final rotation, and they will have to be spectacular if they're going to hold off the Cornhuskers, the #1 team in the nation, under a little extra pressure as they go to the final rotation, and they'll be on the floor. Nebraska will be on the beam when we come back to the Perfect 10 Challenge in Oklahoma City.
The Perfect 10 Challenge is presented by Healthcare Highways, the Chickasaw Nation, the Oklahoman, American Fidelity Assurance, the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau, Integris Health, HealthScope Benefits, and Web TPA.
Welcome back inside the Cox Arena here in downtown Oklahoma City. The 2018 Perfect 10 Challenge continues, set for the 4th and final rotation. Here are the score ranks based on average scores around the country. Oklahoma, UCLA, Utah, LSU, Florida. The top 5 teams in the country, the Oklahoma Sooners, have been above 197 for 35 straight meets, and that is in jeopardy tonight after Kelly, what you can only describe as a disastrous performance on the beam.
It's shocking, just shocking. I don't even remember the last time they didn't, score 197. Do you have any idea?
No, but in fact, they haven't been below 49 on beam for 4 years, and so 3 falls on beam for the team that is known to be solid on beam is going to rock all the message boards and the Twitter feeds in collegiate gymnastics tonight, because competing all around the country are all these top teams, and the Sooners are, of course, the gold standard, and yet there will be a lot of question marks, and you can see concern on the face of KJ Kindler, who is getting set for the 4th rotation here. Let's go down to Meg.
Thanks so much. Floor is essentially the biggest adjustment when it comes to competing on podium, because the Sooners, they don't practice on podium. They normally don't compete on podium. It's way bouncier than what they're used to. And what you're going to want to look out for when it comes to this floor rotation are the power tumblers like AJ Jackson and Brenna Dow, who do the hardest tumbling passes, because sometimes when you get more air, it's actually not a good thing. So they're going to have to really hone in that air awareness, find the landings, and stay in bounds to be successful here tonight.
You're exactly right, Meg. Thank you for that report. Yeah, some of the power tumblers, sometimes they find themselves just flying out of bounds because this sprung floor, now up on a 3-foot riser, is even springier. And there is an opportunity sometimes to go for even some harder skills, and sometimes coaches elect to go for the more difficult routine on the podium because it's just a little bit springier. But once again, as Meg pointed out, it's also hard to control, Kelly.
It really is, and going into the latter part of the season, they need to, that's going to make it or break it on a national championship. I remember the Sooners in their first year where they could possibly win nationals, and where they finished second is 2 of the girls stepped out, caused them to lose the national championship.
Look of concern on the face of KJ Kindler, and but the Sooners now trailing the Nebraska Cornhuskers by 1/10 of a point. Now, of course, there is Heather Brink, the associate head coach at Nebraska, and she has done an outstanding job with them on beam. I can't tell you how many times we've come to the national championships, and Nebraska has had clutch performances on the beam to secure a spot into that Super 6 final.
It seems like it happens right then, and then all the talk is like, wait a second, where did Nebraska come from? How did they make it in? You know, Bart, I was just looking at the numbers right here. You take the Sooners' score now at 146.95, and you add their season high score, which on floor, which is a 49.575. It only gives them a 196.525. So it'll be really interesting. I mean, I don't think they're worried about scores at this point. I think they're about finishing up strong, going back to the gym. Nebraska's starting off really strong. They look so confident going into balance beam.
Kinsey Roby. She is the freshman from Windsor Heights.
She had a little stumble on that skill. It's one of my favorites that I watched her warm up, a switch side right into a quarter turn. It's a D skill.
Windsor Heights, of course, in Iowa. They have a very young team. In fact, they're one of the youngest teams in the country with 7 freshmen. And when I was talking to their coaching staff, including Heather Brink there on the sidelines, I asked them, I said, tell me about your team this year. And said, oh, we are young. And yet they're finding themselves in an unexpected scenario where they have a lead over the #1 team in the nation. And the Sooners will take to the floor now with Bree Showers, a 1/10 of a point behind the Cornhuskers.
Every score is going to count. Every step, every landing. Here she goes. Double pike. You can see her knee bandage. She has a little bit of tendonitis, but not enough to keep her out.
Missed all of last year with an arm injury, a broken forearm, So even though she is a sophomore, this is really her first competitive year for the Sooners.
Well, and she is such a powerful athlete, comes from a family of athletics. Many of these gymnasts who are high-level 10s in club have competed on the podium before, Bart. But this is really her first chance to compete in college on the podium. And she's doing well. Looks like no problem for her.
So one solid hit routine for the Sooners there.
Flash photography is strictly prohibited inside the Cox Convention Center. Flash photography is prohibited.
Lip half right to a front full.
Next for Nebraska on the beam, Abby
Easy,
Epperson.
easy.
Abby Epperson now for Nebraska. Kinsey Roby started them off with a 9.675. It's going to take scores higher than that to stay ahead of the Sooners in this rotation.
Abby might be feeling the pressure. Like you mentioned earlier, she did have a rough meet the last meet, and she did fall on balance beam on her series. So not wanting to jinx her, but here it is coming right now. A handspring layout step out.
Nice. She did have a 9.2 on beam last week in their dual meet with Iowa. But once again, Nebraska is undefeated this year, 5-0, and all their meets have been against other Big Ten contenders.
They look really poised up there. They're not nervous at all. And you normally could sense that or even see it. It's a good example of what they bring to the national championship. It's they're just kind of like that silent one in the background that ends up on the podium. Podium as in the award stand podium. Great hit routine. You know she loves that, just having that confidence, knowing I can do this, and certainly in a clutch competition like this. Great.
Brenna Dowell chalks up her feet before she gets set to go on the floor. You see the national rankings for the Sooners. Dowell is one of those athletes you mentioned who is so powerful that we've seen her actually do this extremely difficult first tumbling run, the handspring to a double front to a leap, and literally leap completely out of the floor area because she's flying.
That's true, but she warmed it up. Just absolutely perfect.
Talking to the coaching staff last week about her warm-ups, and they said, you know, whether she warms up well or not, she seems to always hit. So they don't draw too many conclusions by how she warms up. That's just how she is. But I thought it was interesting that Coach Kindler told us last week that she said not only is she an amazing athlete, but she said she's crazy smart. She's a math major. I mean, who does that?
Well, normally, I don't want to say normally in gymnastics, but it does sometimes cause a problem because it makes you realize, wow, I could get hurt doing this, or if I don't do it exactly right. But she probably has it figured out in her head exactly how many rotations and twists. And
she has an extensive career on international teams for the U.S., and in fact, she competed 1 year in college, went back to compete for the U.S. team in the World Championships, and then came back to college. And that's quite rare. You're one of the few people who are able to both accommodate a collegiate career and an elite career, and that's not easy, is it, Kelly?
it's really not, because the seasons are two different times of the year. The NCAA season, of course, peaks in April, and then the elite season peaks in usually October. And so it took some real strategy the last year I was in college competition to figure out how am I going to make the Olympic team and not be burnt out.
And of course, the rules are quite different in collegiate competition as they are in elite competition. More difficulty required at the international elite level than the collegiate level. So you have to recalibrate your routine significantly.
You know, all those years of international training or training for international competition is what makes Brenna such a rock star in college. Here's that first towing pass. Oh!
She kept it in bounds? Looks like she did. Now, sometimes she does a leap after that, but she smartly adjusted. Otherwise, she could end up in the front row.
We don't want that to happen. Here she goes. Okay, so that's a little dance element out of it. I cannot get over the difference in how she does her gymnastics in college this season compared to her freshman year. She was so green and young, and she's really starting to enjoy it.
Bree Shower's score is in at 9.85. It took a long time for the judges to calibrate that.
Last pass. Notice Brenna is so good at her front tumbling, so those gymnasts out there that sometimes struggle going backwards, there's hope for you. You can do double fronts and double twists.
Back to the beam for the Cornhuskers after we take a look at this high-flying double front somersault.
You know, in warm-up, she did it just perfect, and so I think that little extra of adrenaline caused her to have that hop out, but she was able to handle that last tumbling pass just perfect.
Sienna Kraus now on beam. Update on the scores. So the score for Abby Epperson, a 9.825 after Kinsey Roby led them off with a 9.675. Nebraska with a 1/10 of a point lead in the team competition coming into this rotation.
Well, there's no doubt that the Cornhuskers will have to hit a great rotation. It's not just stay on the beam to win, because the Sooners are on floor, and they're spectacular on floor. Lovely dismount. One of the most unique dismounts I haven't seen it all season from any team. It's a layout gainer fall off the end.
Evie Schofer now. It's interesting. We'll see whether she goes for a double layout. I know the coaching staff was saying they may give her the chance to go for the double layout on the podium because it's a bit springier. She tends to do a tuck double somersault for her opening tumbling run and see what they go for tonight.
I was just going to say that run didn't look like a double layout run.
The Sooners probably being conservative tonight, hoping to come out of this one with a win.
I sure wish I knew what was in that huddle before floor exercise from Coach Kindler, because if you watch, when she turns around, you'll see on the sideline the rest of the team. They're all standing, they're all high energy, and I think she's saying, look, let's just pull this out. Let's pull this together and show them what we're made of.
Both scores for the Sooners to this point, 9.85 for Showers and Dowell.
This is great experience for this freshman. Beautiful double pike, just nailed the landing.
It is unusual that her final tumbling run is more difficult than her first tumbling run, and maybe she'll get a shot at the double layout to open her routine sometime later this season.
Unfortunately, that is one of the negatives that happen when you have a bad rotation on balance beam. She might have been able to be doing her double layout and getting that experience.
Sienna Kraus had a 9.825 on beam, so they have two 9.825s and a 9.675. This is Danielle Breen, All-American on this event, senior from Ames, Iowa.
You know, Bart, this is the event where she started out earlier in the season with a 9.35. But last competition, a 9.9. Very original, pretty original. The one-handed back handspring right into the layout step out. She was perfectly spot on. She looked so confident up there. You know, normally when you're in a pressure situation like this, when you get nervous, you just start moving faster. You don't even realize it. But I've noticed that they're taking their time up on the beam, not getting too rattled. If the mistake happens, it's not from nerves as much as it is from just a technical error. Preparing for dismount. 1.5.
And Heather Brink, happy with that performance. She stood there right on the edge of that mat. The coaches are allowed to be out there. There is Heather Brink in her 7th season. She's the associate head coach at Nebraska. Anastasia Webb now for the Sooners.
This is such a really neat routine. She performs it just so well.
Evie Schofer score a 9.75.
Starts front double full. I like seeing her smile for the first time. Normally she has more of a serious expression when she's doing this routine.
These two teams are separated by just 25 thousandths of a point right now.
Well, I'm going to let you watch the scores. I'm going to watch these girls. It's too nerve-rattling. Such grace in their movements, and yet here they're so strong and powerful. I mean, that's one thing I love about doing gymnastics when I did and watching it now. Pushing hard, going into the last tumbling pass, a Rudy. All right, another solid routine.
Competing next on E for Nebraska, Sierra Hassel.
Sierra Hassel now coming after the 9.75 for Danielle Breen. Hassel, the sophomore from Iowa. Here's the young lady, as we mentioned. She had a little bit inconsistent performance and then rocked some beam routines towards the end of the season last year and really earned her spot as one of the two anchors for the Cornhuskers here.
You know, the choreographer, Russell Warfield, was sharing with me how when she came to college, she didn't have near as much confidence. And it's just grown and grown, kind of like the little athlete Rudy in the movie, the football movie, Notre Dame. And he just said, he just calls her a rock star. And just having someone believe in you. She goes for a dismount. Not a 4.5. Another stuck routine.
Sierra Hassel.
So 5 hit routines, although not superb scores for Nebraska on balance beam. As we go back to the floor for the Sooners, this of course is Maggie Nichols. Anastasia Webb had a 9.9. So the Sooners have squandered much of their lead, but they're starting to regain it and have a slight lead over Nebraska. Nichols and Jackson will be the final two performances.
Oh, it's close to the line too. Again, that first tumbling passes will be upgraded as the season goes along.
Typically, Maggie Nichols does a full twisting double back in that first tumbling run.
That's one of her signature tumbling passes, that front layout step out. It's not necessarily all that difficult other than just creative and original. You know, having performed on the world stage, you can see how confident and how comfortable she is when she's here performing in a big arena. She looks right out to the crowd and says, "Watch me." She has just a gift. I mean, she truly does. She just stands out above so many. Last tumbling pass, double pike with ease. You're really missing a treat if you are at home and not coming to watch this athlete. Just best of the best.
Maggie Nichols. Coming after an impressive 9.9 from Anastasia Webb.
Competing on the beam for Nebraska, Grace
She's
Williams.
just stunning so high. You can see how she'll easily be able to twist that. There's that last tumbling pass, double pike. And now we head over back to the balance beam.
Grace Williams wrapping it up for the Cornhuskers there.
Grace is ranked 12th on balance beam in the nation.
Sierra Hassel, her score's in a 9.85. So that is their best score over there. 1.985, two 9.825s, a 9.75, and a 9.675.
This score is going to tell a lot.
But the score they're hoping to replace is the 9.675 from Kinsey Roby.
So far, she's clean. Stuck rotation.
Nice job on balance beam for the Cornhuskers. They have respectable scores there, but they have not been able to taste that 9.9 plus type scenario. So the Sooners on the floor coming off of Maggie Nichols' 9.95.
AJ Jackson.
Back on track here if they hope just to secure the win. But this could be one of the lowest scores for the Oklahoma Sooners in a long time. 35 meets in a row. They've been above 197. AJ Jackson will wrap it up for them here on the floor, hoping to secure the win over the Cornhuskers.
AJ is just so fun to watch. She tumbles so high. She actually has to hold back on that first tumbling pass. It's the best one I've seen her do yesterday and today. She needs this, not at this point for the score as much as she needs it for her confidence. She's so good, and sometimes I think she doubts that. She puts so much pressure on herself. I'm like, just do your talent, babe. And she is.
So interesting, the dramatically different floor choreography and music and compositions for the Sooners, and all the choreography is done by Coach KJ Kindler. She does not outsource that.
I love how she just stood there like, did you see me land that? Great job.
Senior
A much needed
AJ
routine.
Jackson.
So there is some good takeaway right there for the Sooners of this competition.
Here's a senior from Belton, Missouri, and she delivers a signature performance on floor for the final routine for OU on floor in this perfect 10. This is an exhibition. Rachel Thompson for Nebraska. See the score for Grace Williams in 9.875. So the Nebraska Cornhuskers 49.125 on beam and a 196.175 team score means that Nebraska gave the #1 Oklahoma Sooners quite a scare, because the Sooners will get the victory today, but not the score that they are used to matching.
I bet you a lot of people will do a double take when they see that come across Twitter or the internet.
A.J. Jackson score in a 9-9. So the Sooners get a 196-425. And like I said, that's an exhibition performance for Nebraska. It won't count towards their team total. So Nebraska has a 196-175. So by an extremely close 25 thousandths of a point, the Sooners eke out a victory here in Oklahoma City tonight. You can see Coach Kindler giving some notes.
Certainly a different outcome than I think most expected, not just here in Oklahoma. Nationally, people, they watch. People around the country, they watch to see what other teams are doing. And so they're going to remember this.
Well, the Sooners have been so spectacular all year long. 3 scores over that magic 198. And there'll be a lot of teams out there around the country who say, okay, maybe the Sooners are beatable.
Right.
And that's probably, a psychological turning point in this regular season, Kelly.
I totally agree. And you know what? It also is a turning point for the Sooners. They're going to have to go back and say, can we do this? And not let it shake their confidence and give them the motivation they need to dig a little deeper.
So when we come back to the Cox Arena in Oklahoma City, we will have the final scores and we'll wrap this one up. Boy, that was an interesting night of gymnastics and not one that we expected. Don't go away. We'll wrap this up when we come back. And we're back in Oklahoma City at the Cox Arena and Convention Center. Here are the final stats in this year's Perfect 10 Challenge. You see the scores for the Sooners. There were 3 scores over 49, which is typical for the #1 team in the nation. But look at that OU score on beam, 48-15. I can't remember when I've seen a score below 49 for the Sooners on the beam, and that was a difference maker. Their team total, 196-425. They broke the streak of 35-plus meets over 197. Now, Nebraska, we saw them struggle a little bit early on in the first rotation on bars, but came on extremely strong in the rest of the competition and made this one interesting. So the Sooners get a victory by 25 thousandths of a point here in Oklahoma City today. Take a look at the road ahead. The Oklahoma Sooners have a few home meets coming up, so certainly we hope that the fans come out and support OU against West Virginia on February 23rd, March 3rd versus Michigan, and the March 9th quadrangular meet, and then they'll finish out their regular season on the 16th of March at Alabama. Let's go down to Meg, and she's with OU's coach, KJ Kindler.
Thanks. Well, KJ, Nebraska led by a 1/10 of a point heading into that last event. What'd you like about your team's response after beam?
Well, floor has kind of been a problem for us. We haven't been landing as good as we can. It's definitely the event we've underperformed on because we're great on it. We just haven't come up with it. So it was kind of good for them to be kind of under the gun going in there, and this was their best floor performance of the year. So super, super happy about that.
What did you like? How important is it to really work out the kinks on podium in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, although I don't feel like our mistakes had anything to do with podium. So it's hard to say, but it's good to get on it. It's good to practice. It's good to have that opportunity for sure.
West Virginia up next. What do you want to see in the gym in the next couple days from your team?
Well, I think that we have a lot of little detailed things that we need to really work on, and we'll just do that again and be right back at it on Friday.
KJ, thanks.
Thanks. Bart?
Okay, Meg, thank you very much. Yes, a learning opportunity for sure for the Oklahoma Sooners on a startling night, really, actually, here at the Perfect 10 Challenge. Unexpected. The Sooners did get the victory, and so let's take a look at some of the takeaways from this competition, Kelly. Maybe it was something of a wake-up call here at the midpoint in the season for the #1 team in the country.
Well, they started off on vault and everything looked great. Alex Marks right here, perfect landing. Then we get to see Brenna Dowell doing her outstanding Yurchenko full and a half. She's been spot on this year. Uneven bars. Everything was going solid. Anastasia Webb with a nice routine. Double front dismount. Here's Stephanie Couture. Again, perfectly on. Lands a lovely double layout. But it wasn't until the balance beam that they really started having trouble. And it was just such a shock, I think, for everyone. So Stephanie's the lead off, and she takes a fall. Then we have Nicole Lehrman, who is always on, and just, I think she was so shocked when by the time she hit the floor, she realized she was off the beam. And then Natalie Brown, just uncharacteristic, Bart, just hard to even imagine. I know people around the country are going to be like, what? They scored a what? But you know what? I do think this is a learning lesson for the Sooners. It's going to give them the opportunity to dig deep, to realize how important that they're going to have to nail the rest of the season to win a national championship.
Maggie Nichols, of course, has been stellar all season long. The young lady who scored perfect 10 9 times in her young career. She was not her perfect self, although she did win the all-around tonight. A solid vault and a sort of an awkward transition on the uneven bars, and so she really had to dig in tonight and help the Sooners get at least a team victory.
She did, and she came back, after her bar routine, which was a little bit off. I mean, she solidly hit her beam routine, and then she came into floor and had a great floor set, 995. She really knows how to come back from adversity when it kind of falls apart in the middle of a meet. Maybe some of the other girls will learn from that, and they're going to be their takeaway.
All right, well, it's a busy weekend here in Oklahoma City with the Bart and Nadia Sports Experience. Of course, tonight's event was one of the highlights, the Perfect 10 Challenge with Oklahoma and Nebraska. 9 to 3 tomorrow. Come on down and enjoy a variety of sports. It's free family fitness and fun at the Bart and Nadia Sports Experience. But we're thrilled that you had a chance to join us and watch the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Oklahoma Sooners in women's collegiate gymnastics. For Kelly Garrison Funderburk, I'm Bart Connor. Thanks for watching.